Our speaker is Schelly Talalay Dardashti, and let me read a short, well, reasonably short. She gave me the long version and the short version. So out of deference, I'm going to do the long version.
Oh, wow. Okay.
At any rate, Schelly has been and is a journalist and genealogist, native New Yorker, and has lived, get a load of this, in Tehran, Tel Aviv, Miami, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, I'm assuming Nevada?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And now New Mexico. You know, sounds like my husband's and my resume. We had 6 overseas tours with the State Department and 2 in Washington. At any rate, just a side note there. She is the U.S. Genealogy Advisor for MyHeritage, and for decades has traced her Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and Mizrahi families across Iran, Spain, Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. Sounds like a lot of us in this audience. An early proponent of DNA for genealogy, she co-administers several DNA projects at Family Tree DNA. The former genealogy columnist for the Jerusalem Post, it's all relative. She created the award-winning Tracing the Tribe, the Jewish Genealogy blog, created in 2006, currently on hiatus for right now, and Tracing the Tribe Jewish Genealogy on Facebook, created in 2008 with over 60,000 followers in 101 countries. Not too shabby. Her articles have appeared on JTA, Reform Judaism, Hadassah, National Genealogical Society, NGS, Quarterly, and Avotenu, and numerous Jewish and general genealogy publications, newspapers, and more. Affiliations, she is connected with the board as a member for the Society of Crypto-Judaic Studies, president of the Jewish Genealogy Society of New Mexico, sponsoring annual Jewish genetics and Jewish genealogy DNA conferences, and founding board member of the Sephardic Heritage Institute, New Mexico. You get around.
Thank you, Linda.
Schelly, thank you.
Okay. Bennett just left, but I wanted to share. Oh, is that better? Okay. Bennett just left, but I needed to share 2 stories about Bennett. But he knows these stories because I think he told Mike Kessler last night. The first one was around the year 2000. We were in Salt Lake City for one of the annual meetings of the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies. It's an annual conference, 35, 40 years worth. That year we were in Salt Lake City. And a bunch of us were in the lobby. We were getting ready to go out to dinner, and this guy came over. We didn't know who the heck he was. And he said, I have an idea for a project. And we said, okay, well, we're all going to go to dinner. Come along with us. We had no idea who he was. And he said, I have an idea about using DNA to help with genealogy and connect people. And how many here are interested? Our hands shot up so fast, we all had like windburn on our arms and whiplash from doing that. So that was our first introduction to Bennett. Later on, when my co-administrator of the Iberian Ashkenaz DNA project, Judy Lefkowitz-Simon, who lives now in Monterey, California, Judy was the science head of this. She's got a PhD in epidemiology from Harvard. I'm just the writer. So if there's mistakes in numbers, it's her fault, not mine. But Judy and I, at that time, if you wanted to start a project at Family Tree DNA, you had to go get permission from Bennett. So we said, okay, we'll go to Bennett. We say, Bennett, we have this great idea. We want to be able to, we want to see, this is our concept. We want to see if there are so many Ashkenazi families with stories of Sephardic descent. Can we prove this? Do we have the evidence for it? And he goes, yeah, that's a silly thing. Go away. Yeah, I have other things to do. Okay. Couple of years go by. Bennett, from Ukraine, Omaha, Nebraska, never had a clue that he was anything other than a nice little Ashkenazi boy from the Ukraine, right? Then he gets a match with a Sephardic guy from Bulgaria. Then he gets a match with a Sephardic guy from Chile. Then he matches 3 or 4 families of the 1598 families right here in New Mexico. Then he called me and he said, what do I do? And I said, now you can eat rice at Passover. And he said, thank you. So then he said, and by the way, you can do your project. So both, just some concepts about why we wanted to do this as a DNA project. So why DNA? The technology can provide information when there's no paper trail. It confirms or disproves a relationship or a story. It cuts across history and geography lines. Blood doesn't lie. Surnames don't even count. Across Europe, surnames were not even required in many countries until the 1820s, 1830s, okay? And the results of a DNA study may point to better traditional methodology and resources by pinpointing geography and other really important details. So when you create a DNA project, what do you want to prove? What do you hope to discover? What are the goals? Who can join? And how do you find people to participate? That's the hard one. Well, it used to be. It's not so hard now. The Iberian Ashkenaz DNA project attempts to confirm the Sephardic oral history of some Eastern European Jews. Not everybody has this story. A lot of people do. We were and are looking for genetic matches for Eastern European Jews in today's confirmed Sephardic, Hispanic/Latino communities, descendants of converso families, and that was the impetus for what we wanted to do. So it's basically a geographic-related project. Goals, surnames don't really count, but it was important for this because we were looking also for people that might have been in Eastern Europe that had Sephardic-sounding surnames or variants. So, DNA in general. We wanted to confirm the descendants of a person, sort the branches via mutations, which is how, as Bennett explained in his presentation. So you could sort the branches of a person's descendants by the mutations in the DNA. And as Bennett really did very, very well, you can ascertain the places where various branches of a specific family lived. And family stories are very important. I never discount a family story. Even if you can't prove it, you write it down, you keep it, and at some point you can revisit it. Some of the other projects always ask this, is everyone who bears a particular name genetically related? No. If they match, more or less, there's always variance in spellings, can they be sorted into family branches? If they don't match, do you have results for several families with that particular name or variant? And how are the inhabitants of one location related to each other if they are related? When we set up the criteria for the Iberian Ashkenaz project, we had to consider what really we were looking for. So we were looking for a certain oral history, that there was a history, that the ancestors were Sephardic, coming from Portugal, coming from Spain, coming from other places, a medical condition with Sephardic frequency, a specific surname, a geographical location. Is it going to be a male, Y-DNA, male-to-male test? Is it going to be a female, a mitochondrial or mtDNA project? Iberian Ashkenaz started as a Y-DNA project, then we began accepting mtDNA, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So we know the basis for the project was Judy's family and my family both had these stories. Some Ashkenazi families in Eastern, Western, Northern, Central Europe have Spanish or Portuguese surnames, an oral history of Sephardic ancestors, or another indicator of Sephardic heritage, whether it's a particular holiday custom of a food or something, or being a carrier of a genetic disease that's mostly found around the Mediterranean. Often the Sephardic ancestry has not been verifiable through archival records. And we wanted to discover if DNA analysis could provide support of Sephardic ancestry among some Ashkenazi Jews. So we needed to determine the Y-DNA haplogroups and haplotype signatures of males in Ashkenazi regions with Iberian surnames or an oral history or the Sephardic condition, to compare them with those of the results among the known Sephardic Jewish community and converso/crypto Hispanic Latino families. How did we let people know about this? Back in the old day, this is 2007, 2008, genealogy discussion groups, bulletin boards, websites. Facebook was sort of getting started. DNA and haplogroup lists, geographic groups and websites. We periodically posted results to the same groups, lists, and websites. And at the time, genealogy blogging was huge. That's before we all went over to Facebook. At one point, everybody had a genealogy blog. So we contacted everybody that was writing a Jewish genealogy blog. There weren't that many, but we contacted them as well. So some were fascinated and they rushed to test. Some wanted more information. Some couldn't afford to test. Some didn't understand what we were looking for. And some wanted more information on what the test can and cannot determine. We had to keep participants notified of results and who they match. We had to answer questions, and many participants really did not understand the results without assistance, which we provided. So, in order to disseminate that information, of course, Judy and I, and we brought on other people along the way, we had to understand actually what the results meant, the implications of those results, and we had to make sure we could explain it to the people that were in our project. So this is the story, which I already told you. In the old days, we had to get Bennett's permission, and he just brushed us off until he found all these connections himself. And so the rest is history. So, Sephardic name, Mediterranean medical condition, which could include beta thalassemia, minor, major, Mediterranean familial fever. There are a number of diseases with Sephardic frequency around the Mediterranean. So we needed to provide also information on Iberian Jewish history to explain the migration of Sephardic families to Eastern Europe. Most of you, I think, are familiar with this. We have some history. We have mass migrations from Iberia. 1391 was an awful period of forced conversions, massacres, forced conversions in Spain. Most of the juderias across Spain were completely destroyed. Some came back, some did not really come back. People started leaving in 1391. They saw the writing on the wall. 1492 was the expulsion from Spain. 1493, expulsion from Sicily into southern Italy, up into the hills in Calabria. And anybody that's done any research on crypto-Jews or conversos understands that the word hills, the topographical word hills, is of great interest when we're discussing converso/crypto-Jews. Everybody's hiding in them are hills, as they say. 1497, conversions, expulsion from Portugal, and you have the Portuguese Inquisition following that. So every scholar has a different set of numbers, so don't just rely on this. Approximately, nobody had computers. There was no Ellis Island. There were no passenger manifests for 1492 that we know of. So approximately 500,000 Jews in Spain, approximately 150,000 left in 1492. Approximately 350 became new Christians, B'nai Anosim. The only word that we personally do not use in our groups, that we don't use, is the M word for Marano. If you wouldn't use the N word and you wouldn't use the K word, nobody wants to be called the M word, which means swine and pig, and it's just insulting and it's pejorative, and everybody in New Mexico knows what it means. And then there was a DNA study done a number of years ago, which showed that 20% of the Spanish male population today has Sephardic roots. 1449, there were riots against the conversos. That's when the Limpieza de Sangre statute was passed. 30th of March, 1492, of course, is the expulsion by Ferdinand and Isabella. And all Jews had to leave by August 1st, 1492. That year, that was Tisha B'Av. The day after, the 2nd of August, Columbus set sail. There were many conversos on his crew, and some of them actually had to convert the day before so that they could sail. There are numerous lists available. If we would not take pictures of all the slides, that would be great. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Things change all the time, and then once it gets out, and then you spend the rest of your life saying, no, that one had a mistake. Please don't use that. And by the time you realize that, it's been engraved in stone, and everybody's quoting you with the wrong number. So it's better that way. There's a list of 300 Jews from Barcelona. There are lists for Tarrega, for Tarragona, a number of other lists as well. The Barcelona list has 300 names, where it shows the old name and then the post-conversion name. So this is just 4 people from the Baruch family who each either chose or adopted or were given, depends. There were this is a very fluid situation. So you have Abraham Baruch, who became Antonio Vaz. You have Isaac Baruch, who became Jorge Pereira. You have Rebecca Baruch, who became Maria Vaz Cardoso. And that Vaz and the other Vazes are related. Samuel Baruch became Salvador Benedito. Basically a direct translation. Customs that have survived throughout the years, of course, pork being avoided, some semblance of keeping dietary laws if possible, lighting candles in secret. Along with the hills, lighting candles are very important. Pan de semita is not exactly matzah, but it's like here, people made corn tortillas because they didn't even know they had matzah, right? That's an East Coast, West Coast thing. It wasn't here up in the hills of New Mexico. Then you had Purim, which celebrated Santa Esther. And you had Passover for Santo Moise. Anybody that knows minimal information here knows that there are in the Catholic saint hierarchy, there is no Saint Esther or Saint Moses. One of the other customs, which they also do in Calabria, up in the hills again, they blow ram's horns in the mountains on Rosh Hashanah. It's the shofar. So when we did leave, and that includes 1391, 1398. We know we left by 1398, but I'll get into that later. So people went east along the Mediterranean to Italy, North Africa, and the Ottoman Empire. You can see where this is going. People went everywhere. They went, depending on the year that they went, and intermediary stops, northern European ports such as Amsterdam and London, north across the Pyrenees into France, which is how we believe we left, east from France into Germany, Poland, etc., and of course west across the ocean to the New World. This is the map from Harry Ostra's book. Dr. Ostra is a geneticist. He was at NYU. He's been at many major centers. The only problem with this map is that it doesn't really show the New World, but it does show that everybody went everywhere. They went north, south, east, and the west doesn't show, but we know because we're here, right? Code words. In Northern Europe, Jews flee to England as Portuguese. Every time you see the phrase Portuguese merchant, Portuguese trader, this is code word, just Portuguese is Jewish, right? 1656, Oliver Cromwell allows the Jews to return openly to England, and the Bevis Mark Spanish-Portuguese Synagogue in London was kind of established in 1657. The Ottoman Empire, 1492, masses of Jews were invited by Bayezid II. He welcomed them. They settled in Turkey. They were in Izmir. They were in, at that point, Constantinople, became Istanbul. From there, it was a snap to go from Turkey up into the Balkans, and then they kept moving north. People move around for a lot of reasons: chaos, unrest, plagues, war, all kinds of things. So from the Balkans, it was a straight line up to Romania, Ukraine, Belarus, Russia. People went everywhere. The New World, of course, 1598, the Oñate colonists here, followed by de Vargas. That's our local history here. Inquisition based in Mexico City. There were Spanish numerous Spanish families that actually had gone to the Philippines. And there are some records that the Mexico City Inquisition actually sent some people to the Philippines as part of their sentencing. We know there are families with Sephardic oral history here, obviously. We know that the crypto Jews who came through the port of Veracruz, they went north to Nuevo Leon, they went to Monterrey, of course, Chihuahua. 1848, the U.S. annexes Texas and New Mexico, and there were many conversions by Presbyterian Protestant missionaries, and later, of course, many people decided to affiliate with the Seventh-day Adventists, which was the equivalent of hiding in plain sight. You could worship on Saturday, you didn't have to worry about kosher meat because they don't eat meat. And it was a very simple way of hiding, literally, in plain sight. In Judy's family, the Brosgol family, every generation said, we were Marranos back in the day when a lot of people used that phrase. This was her great-grandparents, Sam and Jenny. The cousin, Jacobo, moved to Barcelona in 1921. What came down in our family was that Talalay was our name in Spain. These are my great-great-grandparents, Menachem Mendel Talalay and Kreda Moshe Jason Yassin. Yassin is a small town on the main road between Mogilev, Belarus, and Bobruisk. We went to Newark, New Jersey, instead of Barcelona. I'm not sure who got the best of the deal here, but this photo is from 1908. The family moved in 1903 and 1904. So we have my great-grandfather, Aaron Peretz Talalay, and Riva Bank, who actually was a Litvak from Kovno. She moved herself. The doctor on the left is Dr. Lou, and the engineer is Sam, and that's my grandmother, Chaya Fega. Fega became Birdie, Birdie became Bertie, Bertie became Bertha. So what we had on both sides of this equation, we had an oral Sephardic hypothesis for both families, Talalay and Brosgol. We knew we were in Mogilev, Belarus since the early 1700s, and actually with more records, we know we were there from the late 1600s. Judy's family was in Rezekne, Latvia since the late 1700s. Talalay, the origin of the surname is Aramaic. It's Hebrew. It's from the book of Isaiah. Because it's Tal, T-A-L, has the meaning of dew, D-E-W. When you come out in the morning and the grass is wet, it has the concept of rebirth. Numerous spellings exist because spelling was not formalized until quite late in Spain. And additionally, we were from Catalonia, which also you had Catalan and Spanish as well. Most of the records are correct. They begin with a T. In some resource books, it's actually indexed under C, and that is absolutely wrong. The medieval paleography for C, if you look at the actual documents, it's not just a C, but it has a little chip. It has a line on the top. The C is actually the medieval T. And my researcher, Maria Jose Suribas Camps in Barcelona, had told me that. And I looked at her and she said, okay, let's go upstairs to meet Jaime Ribiera, who is the director of the Crown of Aragon Archives in Barcelona. And she introduced me. And she said, she has a question about the spelling of the name. And Jaime at that point said, no. He said, it's not a C. Anybody that indexes it as a C doesn't know what they're looking at. He said, that C with a little line on the top, and it's hard to read, that's actually a T. So everybody who spells it with a T is doing it the correct way. Anybody who spells it in an index as C is doing it the wrong way. So that helped. Judy's origin of the surname could be Burzgali in Latvia, but the name Braz is also in Spain. We had Talalay Y DNA. We had Brosgol Y DNA. We had no non-family Ashkenazi matches until recently. Well, this is a number of years ago. Brosgol had the Ashkenazi cluster, but no oral history. Then we started getting converso matches. I got a close match to Nogueiros in Portugal, and I'm related to one of the two Tafoya families in New Mexico. Judy matches the other Tafoya family in New Mexico, and also Villalobos. And actually, we have met people from both Tafoya families. So that's also very, very interesting. We are always looking for more Talalays to test. She's always looking for more Brosgols to test. When I first started researching in Mogilev, I had found 24 families with Sephardic names, as well as oral histories of having come there. But we could not actually pin down when they arrived or why they showed up. My explanation for this is just like story of immigration today. You go where you knew somebody or you're related to somebody, and that's why you wound up there. Mogilev was a very, very Jewish city before the Holocaust. 50% of the city was Jewish. There were schools, there were theaters, name anything that a Jewish community should have, and it had many of them. So we always had this oral history. On Judy's side, they had an oral history of the related families. She's related also to the Zaydans, who have an oral Sephardic history, and they believe they migrated to Lepel in Belarus from the Ottoman Empire. So, for Judy's kind of family, well, we have villages on the tributaries of the Ebro River. Sanguesa Navarra, the Samuel Abraz, is a document from 1366. Tafaya in Navarro, Zayden from Aragon, and our project members with Sephardic history, of course, were Brosgol, Tafaya, and Zaydens on Judy's side. Our family was sent all of our documents, and all of our indexes are centered in the city of Lerida or Lleida, depending if you're spelling it in Catalan or in Spanish, Catalunya, which is about 140 miles northwest of Barcelona. I have a document that I'll show at the end. It's signed by Moshe, written in Catalan, Talalaya in 1358, an archival document on how much kosher wine could be brought into the city of Lleida and at what time of the year and from whom. It's a really fascinating document. You have to be a paleographer to be able to read this. But Maria Jose, my researcher, is a former attorney, so when she translated the entire document, it literally looked like it was written yesterday. It could have been any contract on any subject from any attorney written yesterday. And it's a wonderful thing to read. And it's signed by all the leaders of the Jewish community in the city. We also have a group from Zaragoza, which is not that far. I'll show you a map. The Ben Talila family, and the name of the town actually is Talila. And 14th century, they went to Fez and Meknes in North Africa. So, which is another very funny story. When my daughter was in college, she went off with some of her other friends, and they were traveling around Spain. Some of them were in school in Sevilla and in other places. And so I went to the Library of Congress, and I found a guidebook from the 1700s for Zaragoza. And actually, they had this town listed, and it says you have to be really careful. Hay muchos lobos y zorros. There's lots of wolves and foxes. You have to be really careful. We don't know if they were just warning them against wild animals or if they were rabid. We had no idea. So the funny part of it was when my daughter and her friends were taking a taxi from Zaragoza 30 kilometers out to the middle of nowhere. Towns in the middle of fields somewhere. And the taxi driver said the same exact thing. You have to be really careful. Hay muchos lobos y zorros. And the kids were laughing hysterically because I had copied this and sent it. This is from the 1700s, and they're still saying the same thing about this place. There's a lot of wolves and foxes. So that was just an aside. So we have numerous mentions. We found more in various indexes through 1398. The one that was for Jacobo and Astruc Talaya was a tax notice looking for them because they had not paid their taxes. So when I went to the Crown of Aragon, the archives in Barcelona, and we went upstairs to see Jaime Ribeiro, who was the head of the archives at the time, and I said, is this dangerous that I'm showing you this tax notice? You're not going to try and collect all these back taxes from 1398 from me, are you? And he goes, no, it's okay. We'll give you a pass. I'll write you a note. We found documents and then nothing for quite a long time. This is you can see Barcelona and you can see Zaragoza. Kind of, sort of, it's not that far. It's far enough, but again, it's not like driving to the other side of the country. This is a much better one. You can see Lleida, and you can see Zaragoza. Then you see on the bottom is Tarragona, Mont Blanc. And if you go off to the right, which doesn't show here, you'll see Barcelona. So Lleida and Zaragoza, it's not that far. Right above Lleida, you'll see Manzon, which was also another very large Jewish community. And if you know Jeff Malka, Dr. Jeff Malka is considered the pioneer of American Sephardic history. Jeff's great-grandfather was the chief rabbi of the Sudan, and his relatives come from the town of Manzon, and Maria Jose found all the records for their family there. He was one of the scribes, actually, one of the notaries. So she's done a lot of work for a lot of Sephardic families. So what did we find in other countries? There's an entire branch in Warsaw and another branch in Poznan.
My mother's family is Poznan from Poland.
Yep, that's okay.
So is Poznan
Poznan is a city. No, it's a Polish city. So one of the guys is a professor of linguistics at the University of Poznan, and I contacted him. And he said, I'm really glad you contacted me because I had no idea what this name means. He said, it's a weird name. It's not Russian, Slavic, or Polish. Nobody knows what it means. It's very peculiar. And he said, in fact, when my brother and I were in school at university, in another Polish university, nobody would room with us because we had a very suspicious, peculiar name. And he said, I'm not complaining. We had a really nice apartment, he said, because nobody else would room with us. But he says, we have no idea. We have no idea who we are. They're all university professors, doctors, musicians, attorneys. They're not Jewish? We know they're Jewish. All right. We have another group in Warsaw. The head of customs at Warsaw Airport was a Talalay, Piotr Talalay. There's a whole family of musicians in Warsaw. Not related to the other ones. My particular hunch, and we haven't been able to get DNA out of them, my particular hunch is that this branch were children who survived the Chmielnicki massacres in the Ukraine and somehow wound up in the church, and those kids were the progenitors of these branches. So, we have a 1600 Catholic marriage in Brussels. We have Talalays in southern France that know their background was Jewish. It's an extremely rare name anywhere. Anytime you see Talalay, it's one of ours. For Judy's family, Brozgol, you have Broz or Ambrozic. They're in Slovenia, they're in Croatia. You might remember the name of Joseph Broz, who was the head of Yugoslavia, Tito. And she's always looking, she spent years trying to get a descendant or a relative of Tito Broz to get DNA from him. This is perhaps an easier thing to see. You can see on the bottom is Turkey. It was a straight shot up to the Ukraine. So you can see how Bennett's family may have gone straight up that way, from Turkey to Bulgaria to Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, and then into Russia and Belarus, etc., all over the place. Why did people move around? Again, there were plagues, there were wars. The Ottoman Empire was really weak from the 1700s. There were wars. Anytime there's a war, chaos, unrest, people want to migrate. There were the Russian-Turkish wars, which weakened the Ottomans. You had problems in Crimea, and it was just a mess. So people moved everywhere. Sephardic families went into Eastern Europe due to war and unrest. There was a war with Austria and Venice. There were other wars with Austria. This is not a time when you just sit under your tree and have a barbecue. You know, people just moved around a lot. So human migration, of course, with Y-DNA Adam, migration out of Africa. People, again, way back in the beginning are moving everywhere. Haplogroups, as Bennett really defined in his phylogenetic tree. Today it's defined by SNPs and identified by uppercase letters, etc. So the SNPs define the haplogroup today. For our purposes, for the Iberian Ashkenaz subgroup, project member has a match whose common ancestor is a converso or known Sephardic. The most recent common ancestor, 500 to 800 years before the current time, based on at least 67 markers or 37 markers in the same terminal SNP, which is just technical stuff. But we always advise that people get 67 markers tested. Likely Sephardic, again, a common ancestor is converso or known Sephardic, and it could be 800 to 1,000 years before common times. Possibly Sephardic, they've tested fewer markers, but they still have a match with people who are Sephardic or a converso descendant. Unlikely, they have lots of high-resolution matches, and none of them are Jewish, none of them are conversos, none of them are known Sephardim. And all of this is algorithm stuff, which is very scientific. These were some of the haplogroups in Iberian Ashkenazi project, which is really technical, which isn't really going to help us. But approximately 73% of those in the project are confirmed likely or possibly Sephardic, which is a very high figure. This was the way people joined our group, and we have to update this one, of course, but steady, we still have people joining the group. It was launched on March 1st, 2007. In 2011, we had 251 people. Then we had 704 people. It keeps going up and up and up. When members self-identify, these are some of the locations. Around 40% were Ashkenazi. They identified as that's where they were from. Almost 33% Iberian, 17% European or early American, 4.2 Middle East, North Africa, 3% Italian, Greek, and 4% unknown. They simply just don't know. So 586 were in haplogroups in the project with Jewish individuals in them. Not all are Jewish, about 560 are Jewish. It was hard to make a count because a lot of the members simply don't know. They didn't know. This is, instead of a phylogenetic tree, this is what the Y-DNA looked like in the map. So how did people get around? Asian, North European, haplogroups to Iberia. We had the Silk Road, which went from China, Central Asia, Near East into Europe. We had the Amber Road from the Baltics, Central Europe, around the Mediterranean. There were always Jewish merchants and traders on all of these routes. Genes get around. Not Levi's, the other kind. And Bennett really explained about the different groups, R1B1, most common haplogroup in Europe, I1, Northern Europe. We used to call it the Viking one. Now we know it's not Viking because it's 1-2A1 is actually from Spain. E1B1B was common in North Africa, Middle East, Balkans, Mediterranean. J1 in the Arabian Peninsula, the Levant, North Africa. J2, Levant, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, Caucasus, Mediterranean. T is in Iberia, but it's rare. And there are some T's here in New Mexico as well, but again, it's rare. G is the Caucasus. And for a long time, if you asked them where they were from, they didn't know. They would say, we're from Mars, because so little research had been done on them. Now they know they're from the Caucasus. They're really not from Mars. So all of this stuff gets around. Q is very rare in Iberia. Q is Central Asian, Chinese, basically, Q. R2 is South Asia, the Caucasus, Central Asia. But people moved all over the place. You really can't tell so much. People lived, a lot of people. You had Sephardim, Ashkenazim, and Mizrahim in places like Constantinople and Iberia that all lived together. Just as an example, people don't know that there was a Polish Jewish community in Constantinople from the 14th century. These were Polish Jews that were thrown out of Poland. They went to Constantinople, and at the time that they went there, they had completely separate community institutions. separate cemeteries, separate synagogues, separate butchers, separate schools. Everything was completely separate. 1492, they're like subsumed by all these Iberian refugees, who again are keeping very, very, very separate. But people are people, and when you live in close proximity to people, to think that there's no intermixing of genes or genetics is kind of naive, because people lived really close together in those days. So a common ancestor within the last 500 years, 90% of your markers are going to match, give or take. A common ancestor during the 13th to 15th century, 85% of the markers should match. So the answer was, the question was, can we find why DNA matches among known Sephardim, Converso descendants, Hispanics, Latinos? And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. We had oral Sephardic history, Iberian surname or variants, Sephardic traditions, genetic Mediterranean diseases. And we know this whether the family history is known, unknown, suspected, or vehemently denied. We've had cases of that. That's impossible, never happened, we're not Jewish. Surprise, yes, you are. Well, not you aren't, but your ancestors certainly were. So the sources of the Sephardic and Converso matches were family tree DNA reported matches. Y-search is another tool that we have, FTDNA, recent ancestral origins, and a lot of other Y-DNA projects. As an example, we had this cluster, J2 cluster. The Haag family has a very strong oral Sephardic history. They went from Andalusia to The Hague, Den Haag, in the Netherlands. They went to Altona and Hamburg in Germany. The Delisser family, a Sephardim from Jamaica, West Indies. The Bureau family, strong oral Sephardic history. They left Spain, they went to Holland, Germany, Bohemia, Moravia, and Hungary. The Diamond family, no oral Sephardic history. They've been Polish for 1,000 years. But the family carries a Mediterranean genetic disorder. And guess what? The same exact mutation is in the Persian community, the Persian Jewish community. And it was discovered by the same researcher that discovered that family's condition. They also went to the same doctor at Hebrew University / Hadassah, who confirmed that these two people both had the same exact mutation. Our correlation based on this was that Delisser from the West Indies, Diamond from Poland with no Sephardic ancestry, 96% correlation. The Delisser and Haag families, different Sephardic backgrounds, sort of, 87% correlation. The J1E cluster is also different. The Shaws have no oral Sephardic history, none at all. Medina family traces back to Zacatecas in Mexico. The Rios family traces back to Spain. The M family, we don't have permission to use their whole name, so they're an initial. A very weak oral Sephardic history. The family fled Spain, eventually settling in Lithuania. And then you have the famous Ibn Aharon family, a known Sephardic family from Toledo. So we have a 62-67 marker match between Shaw, with no Sephardic history, and an Ibn Aharon descendant. We have a 65-67 marker match between the M family and an Ibn Aharon descendant. The story on the Ibn Aharons were in 1492, a group of Jews from Toledo in Spain, not Ohio, were given a charter by the Prince of Martenburg in Germany. Ibn Aharon, which is a common name among Kohanim, this is a Kohanim family, moved to Martenburg and changed their name to Aarons. In 1543, after Martin Luther publishes an anti-Semitic pamphlet, the prince expels the Jews, including the Aarons family. The Aarons family now moves to Western Russia. So we have a 96% correlation between the Ibn Aharon known Sephardic family with the Shaw family that has no clue as to who they are. We have a 99% correlation between the Ibn Aharons and the M family. So we've been able to prove these things. So we know that why DNA supports Sephardic ancestry. It's approximately 92.3%. 43.6% are highly likely or confirmed Sephardic, 48.7% possibly. And after these dates, many of the people have now done Y700, as Bennett explains, which has many, many, many more markers. It looks at a really detailed look at the entire family. These are some of the names in the Iberian Ashkenaz project. You only have to go to familytreedna.com, look up under projects, go to geographical projects, look up Iberian Ashkenaz, click on it, and you will actually go to the results page, and you can see all the names that are involved in this project. Names increase all the time. We have a lot of names in there, and there's always more names added. So we have I2A1, which is my Talalay group, likely Sephardic with very close matches with the Nogueira Santos family, Costa, also from Portugal, and all my Talalay family, of course, which we know them, and one of the Tafoya branches. All of the results of the Iberian Ashkenaz project have been folded into the Avateno DNA project, the census of the Jewish people, which is managed by Adam Brown, which is an academic project with the Technion in Israel. And they have tested over 10,000 people in many communities around the world. They're still looking for more people to test. If you go to avatenodna.com, you'll get all the information, and you can contact Adam Brown. He was here a number of years ago and actually did quite a bit of sampling among the crypto-Jew converso descendants as well. Geshe Galicia specializes in Galicia, of course, province of the former Austrian-Hungary Empire. And they also promote genealogical DNA testing among those with Jewish ancestry from Galicia, and we know there was Sephardim there also. The Sicily DNA Project was established in 2005 to study the genetic heritage of the crossroads of Sicily for almost 3,000 years. And the background includes Greek, Italian, Arab, Sephardic, Jewish, Norman, Spanish backgrounds, among others. There are 3 New Mexico DNA projects. One is the New Mexico DNA Project, 2,000 people. It's a very big project because it was the first one. It covers the colonial expeditions in 1598, 1693, in 1821, and of course in 1848. It includes Hispanics as well as Anglo-Americans who came to New Mexico. And it demonstrates many haplogroups, including those considered to have Jewish frequency. The New Mexico Genealogical Society project is managed by Miguel Torres of Los Alamos, and that's a really interesting project that they have. All of the projects mentioned, of course, are at familytreedna.com. Most are Y-DNA projects. Some include mtDNA, mitochondrial. And I was so thrilled to hear Bennett say that we will be able in the near future to get a lot more information out of the mitochondrial tests, because until now, mtDNA mutates very, 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 very slowly. So you could have 10,000 exact matches, which is totally useless. I mean, it's impossible. There are 2 resolutions of mitochondrial DNA testing at Family Tree DNA. One is the regular, one is high resolution. Even on high resolution, which drills down, you get thousands of matches, which are, again, it's extremely difficult to deal with. So if we can ever get something like the Y700 for mitochondrial, we can actually really drill down into that and get much more information for that particular test and much more information about our maternal lines. So this actually is the translation of the document that my guy signed. He's in red. And if you can read that, you can probably read that better than I can read on this little thing here. But the last names are really, really interesting. This does not, to most people who don't research in Catalonia, these names are very, very unusual, but these are names that are found all over Catalonia. So it was really interesting finding these names. So that's the whole list of the Jewish leadership. And it was signed on the 18th day of the month of June in the year 1358. It was signed by the leaders of Yeda, the municipal leaders, as well as the Alhama of the Jews of Yeda. That's the whole top paragraph. So it's a great, if you come from anywhere near there, this is a great source of information because you know there are records. And let's see, last but not least, be prepared for surprising results indicating unexpected origins. People's origins may have been lost in the past. DNA results may prove identity shaking. If you have skeletons in your closet, might want to tell people about them because those skeletons usually come out dancing at really inopportune times, like weddings and things like that. Bennett he said, you have to keep an open mind when you're dealing with DNA, and you don't want to hear the answer. If you're not prepared to hear the answer, just don't ask the question because it really can shake you up. And of course, Judy and I thank Bennett because without him, we'd still be wandering and wondering. And Bennett helped us amazingly. I couldn't have done it without Judy. Judy and I worked together on this forever. Herb Hupsher, who we lost a number of years ago, his Worth Y DNA project is a model of an extended surname project which inspired us to create the Iberian Ashkenaz one. And thank you to my ancestors who actually kept this alive, just saying that this was our name in Spain. So thank you very much. Yes. Sure. Sure.
Two people online who have questions, and these sort of date back to your presentation earlier. If 20% of the male population has Sephardic roots, what about the female population?
They didn't do that study.
That answers that one.
Yeah, it was a Y DNA study.
And then, let's see here. The other one is about the DNA project that started with an A, Adavanu. Which project was that?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
The DNA project that started with an A.
Avoteno DNA.
Avoteno
AvotenodNA.com is the website.
Thank you very much. I think you
Okay.
answered our questions.
Thank you, Shelley. I learn more every time I hear you. Helen's cousin's her last name is Spanier, Spanier, from Germany, as far as we
Means
can tell.
Spain.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
means Spain.
That's kind of what I thought, but I wanted confirmation.
Have you done DNA yet, Helen?
Not the Y.
No, not the Y, but autosomal.
Yeah, 100% German.
Where did you test?
Family tree DNA.
Why have you not transferred it to Family Tree DNA and MyHeritage? Ancestry doesn't see Sephardim. All Jews, they say they have a category now, it's not really reliable. Basically, Ancestry says all European Jews, it does not make a distinction whether they come from Iberia or Siberia. When we're talking about DNA, you want to be in all of the big databases. Ancestry, 23, MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA. You do not know where your unknown ancestors have tested. Ancestry's database is still very US, UK centric. MyHeritage's database, DNA database, is global. Australia, the Far East, the Near East, Africa, everywhere. Not a day goes by when we don't have people finding each other. And MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA have no problem recognizing Sephardic or Mizrahi. So you need to transfer. It's free.
I'm sorry, I thought I told you that we use family tree DNA.
You need to transfer to MyHeritage.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Also, second question, have you been able to trace your family back to the people for whom Atalaya Hill is known in San
You know,
Jose?
that pops up all the time, and I've asked my researcher, and she goes, no. So that has not shown up in any of our documents. There's a Atalaya, yeah, but it's not us. Yes.
Can the increase of sperm donors threaten the future of DNA tracking?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Can the increase of sperm donors threaten the future of DNA tracking?
I heard the sperm donors. I don't know why I'm not hearing
Right.
that.
Can the increased use of sperm donors threaten the future of DNA tracking?
Oh, I mean, there are already cases where people have done that, and they found that guy that has 70 children or something. That was done literally through DNA databases. They do it now. As I said, people with skeletons in the closet, I don't know if that's really considered a skeleton, but yeah, DNA, this will bring this out as people test. When you realize you're related to 70 people and it says you're all siblings, you have to investigate that. I mean, no questions? You have absolutely no questions.
Well, it was so informative.
Okay.
Thank you, Jill. Oh, sorry. One more.
Oh, sure.
From the chat box, I think.
One more online question. How can we transfer records to family tree DNA?
Okay, it's not records, you're talking about DNA results. All the companies that do DNA, if you go to your account at that particular website, they always have a tab on the top saying DNA. It will say either upload your file, upload your test results. You will upload it to your desktop of your computer. You will then go to the other site where you want to upload your results. And again, look for that little DNA tab, and it will say, now take the thing that's sitting on your desktop and give it to us. It takes 2 minutes. You just have to set up an account at the other place as well. And within a day or 2 days, you'll start getting results. It's very, very simple. But you want to be, ideally, you want to be in all 4 databases. Family Tree DNA and MyHeritage accept transfers of DNA tests. Ancestry and 23 do not. So where do you test first? That's a decision that each person has to make for themselves. If you don't test at Ancestry, which you can transfer to MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA, then you'll have to do another test at Ancestry. So, yeah, we have a question.
Just
Wait,
a moment,
wait for the
please.
microphone.
Let me bring you a mic, because otherwise our people online.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Leona.
I wanted to know a little bit more about the high-resolution DNA. The high resolution that you mentioned?
Oh, they have 2 levels of mitochondrial DNA testing at Family Tree DNA. One is the regular one, the other one is the high resolution one, it's more expensive. It drills down into all of those results. So where you might have 10,000 exact matches, on the high resolution one, you'll have several thousand less, but it's still a lot of exact matches and very difficult to work through. I personally always have problems with mitochondrial DNA, but if what Bennett is saying, and I know he said it, it's true, when that test comes through, that will be a godsend to everybody that doesn't have wide to work with, or they're just really concerned about their mitochondrial testing, because that will be a revolution, literally, in DNA. Did we have another
Okay.
one? I thought I saw someone else's hand.
If we're all finished with questions, I want to take 1 second. Linda Goff has been very gracious to thank everybody who has helped with and participated in the conference and coming to the conference. And I think we need to thank Linda Goff for the tremendous amount of work that she's done.
I honestly did not bribe her to say that. But thank you, Leona, for your kind words. Again, thank you all for coming in person as well as via Zoom. And do leave your evaluation forms with us. And if you have a Hearst Award nomination, today. There will be other opportunities. Please do that as well, and safe journeys home. And I want to thank everyone here who played a part, and see you at the next fall conference, if not before. Thank you.